The Monogatari franchise is a perfect storm of talent, vision, and artistic flair. The tales of each arc are mind-bending, thought-provoking, or both, asking us questions of ourselves even as we do the same to the characters on screen. The writing, while often pedantic and long-winded, is filled to bursting with clever tricks and wordplay, along with a measured, poured-over pacing that bleeds the thought and care put into it. And of course, the visual presentation is second to none, being distinct, unforgettable, and unmistakable, accomplishing the feat of making you forget that, by and large, most of the tangible nature of what you are watching is simply characters talking. And to go with this unparalleled execution is an equally unique and widespread cast, embodying and in many cases perfecting tropes while subverting others. Each of the characters in Monogatari is predictable, but simultaneously dynamic. They are believable people, at least putting aside the supernatural elements associated with their persons and stories. So naturally, the otaku world ranks the individual characters, particularly the girls, into lists, tiers, and any number of other categorical boxes that lets one justify one's taste without any actual argument. While not necessarily useful or productive, such constant ordering and filing has revealed that, more consistently than any other, Sengoku Nadeko is rated at the bottom of the barrel. And the reasons for this are many and varied, everything from boring and underdeveloped to bad design. And yet here I sit, wholly believing Nadeko to be one of Monogatari's best characters right alongside Kissshot herself. If the reasons for the distaste of Nadeko were more consistent, I could easily brush it aside as a difference of taste between myself and the wider otaku world. It's certainly not the first time it's happened, and it absolutely will not be the last. While I am accustomed to having my general opinions on anime not mirror those of other otaku, whenever I come up against such a case, the reason is most often me seeing some more metatextual element that everyone else has yet to see, or vice versa. But the justifications for Nadeko's low ranking are all over the place, which at least to me asks the question, what's the real reason? What's the possible subconscious through line here? What is it about Nadeko that makes so many people dislike her? It's not as though Nadeko is always tiered dead last. Tsuhiki often accompanies her in the lower ranks, but Tsuhiki is near universally complained as being underdeveloped, uninteresting, and siscon bait, and I cannot disagree. She is a weak link in an otherwise strong cast for all of those reasons. But Nadeko shines in all those areas where Tsuhiki falls short, yet is still disliked by the same tokens. Unlike Tsuhiki though, this is no accident. That otaku dislike Nadeko is by Nisio Isin's brilliant design. She is written, on the face, to be hated. Let's look at how and why, and maybe by the end you'll appreciate her as much as I do. To really break into Nadeko's character, she needs to be analyzed chronologically, and I mean in release order chronology. In Nadeko Snake, she is simply a 2-bit quick arc character. Nothing about her or her story really stands out. Both feel more like filler rather than meaningful adventures for Araragi and company. In fact, Kanbaru is more enjoyable to watch and listen to in Nadeko Snake than Nadeko herself. She appears to be no more than what many fans accuse her of being. Fanservice eye candy and a siscon/Dadaru fetish given physical form. Such accusations of her so-called character at this point are not inaccurate. However, already in Nadeko Snake, Nisio Isin is laying the groundwork for the character who will develop later. When she first appears, Nadeko is characterized by 2 key attributes which form the foundation for the culmination of her subtextual plot. These being her obsessive and sexual desire for Araragi, and her shy, demure attitude. She is a simultaneously aggressive and passive person. Not passive-aggressive in the common sense. It is more accurate to say that she has a strong will, but only ever goes halfway, or at least as far as she can until she meets resistance, at which point she immediately retreats into an opaque emotional shell. Additionally, we are seated the idea of Nadeko's stubbornness in the case of the Jigiri-nawa. She does not think to go to others for help dispelling the curse placed upon her, instead choosing to find a solution on her own. This stubborn single-mindedness puts her in an even worse situation than she would have been in simply by doing nothing. The background information as to why she even attempted to cure herself is also important, but more analytical of her character on my part, so we'll get to that later. Essentially, with Nadeko Snake, Nisio Isin is giving us the basic layout of Nadeko's emotional color palette. Like with all the other characters in the Monogatari franchise, this not only allows them to be familiar and fond to us when they show up later, but allow us to predict their actions moment to moment, reinforcing the illusion of them as believable people. Nadeko is briefly seen again in Bakemonogatari at the beginning of Tsubasa Cat, with the excuse of trying to return the clothes lent her by Kanbaru, and to thank Araragi for helping her with the Jigiri-nawa. There isn't much to this scene, but we do learn one other important facet of Nadeko's person, that being that she is, well, a bit of a She makes manga and movie references, Araragi distinctly remarking that she uses ones exclusive to more obscure material. On its face, this is innocent enough and more or less just character fluff at this point, but it is critical to understanding why she is disliked and why I personally love her. Nadeko's next appearance is in Monogatari's 2nd season, and it's here in Nadeko Medusa and Hitagi End where Nisio Isin will cash in all the chips he's been building up, some even out of sight. In the more overarching story-relevant Nadeko Medusa, Nadeko is confronted with herself by both Shinobu and Tsuhiki, eventually completely losing her mind and becoming the god of North Shirahebi Shrine. This is then followed by Hitagi End, where she is saved and turned back to normal by Kaiki. In these two arcs, she displays a strong sense of shame of herself, lack of confidence, dodging responsibility, arrogance, and most notably, a deluded view of reality which she desperately clings to. These are all direct elaborations of her more basic established character from Nadeko Snake, and form the crux of my view of her as an amazingly well-conceived character. Furthermore, her evolution from quiet, subdued girl into an explosive, angry person followed by unhinged murderer play into the culmination of her arc as having lost all semblance of patience. No, I did not misspeak. Nadeko's arc concludes with her transformation into the god of North Shirahebi Shrine. Her salvation at the hands of Kaiki and Hitagi End is better thought of as an alternate telling of her story, one in which she actually faces herself versus refusing to do so. After all, with Kaiki being the focus of Hitagi End, it is his arc, not Nadeko's, which is concluded here. Making this distinction is important in an examination of what exactly Nadeko represents metatextually. So what is it that she stands in for? What is it that she epitomizes, and why does that bother the otaku world so much as to dislike her? Well, first, I want to reiterate this dislike is not an accident. Nisio Isin was not merely writing an interesting villain whom he hoped fans would like for her unique pathos and connection to Araragi and the apparitions, only to fail to deliver. He built her from the ground up to be disliked, to be the token hated character. Because Nadeko is you, and me, all of us. We, the otaku world, are Nadeko. This characterization is present from our first introduction to her in Nadeko Snake, made explicit in her brief scene in Tsubasa Cat, taken to its natural conclusion in Nadeko Medusa, and given a path of escape in Hitagi End. Nadeko Snake espouses the core attributes of an otaku as we are stereotypically understood, and as we commonly exist. Nadeko has clear drive and fortitude as a person in her first arc, something we otaku exude in no short amount. We've built an entire community and ecosystem around it after all. But venture outside that world and we become reserved and quiet, mostly unsure of how to handle the interest of others in our person. And we are equally as stubborn as Nadeko is shown to be, believing that the world will not have the answers to problems that seem wholly unique to us simply by virtue of being who we are. Just like her, we feel alone and that our problems are ours alone to solve, for better or worse. And equally similarly, by choosing to go down this path, we often put ourselves even deeper in the hole until we have no choice but to ask for help, embarrassed. Nisio Isin is more on the nose with Nadeko's obsessive love for Araragi, being a direct mirror for the tendency for otaku to fantasize over waifus or idols, but that's expounded on later, so we'll save it for now. And just in case this idea hadn't been seeded well enough in Nadeko Snake, it's made sure to stick in her scene in Tsubasa Cat. In this scene, Nadeko essentially probes Araragi with her obscure references, trying to gauge his compatibility with her. This is something pervasive in otaku and wider nerd fandoms. Obscure character profile pictures online, low-key shirts, and subtle show logo bumper stickers are all exactly what Nadeko does to Araragi in this scene. And our reaction when we're approached by someone who understands what it is we're showing off is also the same as Nadeko's. A jubilant assumption of a connection with someone we barely know. A substitution, if you will, for a genuine relationship formed over actual emotional synergy. Nadeko Medusa is where her traits link us to her most, and in the most unflattering of ways. And it's for this depiction that she is disliked. Nadeko begins her struggles with her own identity in Medusa with her rejection of the idea of being called cute, and we can easily substitute in quaint or unique when comparing her to us. These words are often used by others to describe us, and usually in a positive context, just as cute is used when the other characters describe Nadeko. Her rejection of this adjective to her person is not humility. She is swatting away the compliment instinctively, a gut reaction she has trained herself to respond with out of a deep-seated sense of misanthropy. She believes the world cannot and does not understand her, and therefore treats any and every compliment as a fake. In the same way, we reject the curious out of a misplaced sense of otherness and a distrust of those outside our community. As Medusa continues, we are introduced to Kuchinawa, who we eventually learn is purely a delusion Nadeko dreams up to foist her problems and responsibility upon. For otaku, Kuchinawa is analogous to those waifus and idols I'd said I'd come back to. Here, Nisio Isin splits the issue into its component parts, Kuchinawa taking the part of isolationism, and Nadeko's love for Araragi hoisting up escapism. For Nadeko, Kuchinawa becomes a force which drives her to do things away from everyone else, and is invisible to the rest of the world. Nadeko also allows him to take the burden of her worries and real-world responsibilities by giving his imagined plight priority. Otaku do this to a T with our shows and their characters. This is where the phrases relating to a character and the idea of many versions of one waifu come from. They are idealisms which otaku insert their own emotional troubles into to displace them from themselves. Furthermore, the tendency of otakudom to consume one's free time and even encroach onto that time which should be used to stay healthy or nurture a positive lifestyle is eerily similar to Nadeko's devotion to Kuchinawa. In her lust for Araragi, we have otaku escapism through the unobtainable. Nadeko says it herself in her conversation with Tsuhiki that she refuses to let this poisonous love go out of a knowledge that with no chance of reciprocation, she will never be hurt by outright rejection, nor will she need to invest effort and emotional energy into maintaining romance. The tendency for otaku to fanatically defend and obsess over waifus and idols all stems from the exact same thought process. Be it from prior lack of success in the world of romance or a perceived inferiority, we choose that which we know we can never have, knowing that in so doing, we can never be disappointed. It will not be nearly as satisfying as a true relationship, but it is an exit for those emotions. We can easily and thoughtlessly dump those emotions into what amounts to nothing without any repercussions. Even Nadeko's approach to the dilemma of her class's state of distrust is reminiscent of the otaku mindset. Despite struggling to stay above water in a damaging environment and having the power to build a raft, she would rather continue paddling away. She already knows how to do so, and so continues to maintain the status quo. She desires no conflict, and is so accustomed to feeling terrible that she simply accepts this as inevitable. We do the very same, believing the world will never understand us, so why even try to explain ourselves? To do so would be to rock the boat and put ourselves out on the imagined firing range, and we would rather risk nothing and endure over maybe building a better community with a little elbow grease. From here on in Medusa, Nisio Isin delves into the prophetic with Nadeko. When backed against the wall of her own insecurities, having run from herself for so long, she lashes out, hurting the very people trying to help her and who care about her most. On a more emotional level, we do this as well. We stand atop a mountain of misunderstandings, and when anyone tries scaling said mountain, we see only someone encroaching on what is ours, and burn bridges in a learned method of perceived self-defense. But more drastically, Nadeko embodies the very mindset of what we are coming to understand as the psyche of a school shooter. She is rejected by the world, punished and demeaned for her personal tastes, and dreams up an imagined sense of being attacked. In showing us this complete spiral into what seems to be insanity, Nisio Isin is offering a warning, that if we do not face ourselves, we will become nothing more than monsters deserving of being hunted and eliminated, as Shinobu and Araragi are forced to do to Nadeko. That this warped and twisted ideology is personified in a little girl only makes the point hit harder. Cute girls like Nadeko are the bread and butter of the otaku world, and were this identity to be presented in the form of a male, we would merely brush him aside as a genuine villain. But in the form of Nadeko, we are confronted with our own faults as a community and as individuals in the very shape from which so many of them are sourced and perpetuated. Obviously, this is not to say that all otaku are school shootings waiting to happen. I am just as guilty of the mental gymnastics presented by Nadeko as any of us, and I am far from becoming an ideological killer. The point Nisio Isin is making with Nadeko is that our faults and prejudices turn us into toxic monsters who hurt those who want to help us. It just so happens that our current climate provides us with very visible examples of the extreme end of that eventuality. But finally we have Hitagi End, wherein Nadeko receives grace. And before, I said that this is more of an alternate version of the analogy than a continuation. Because in Hitagi End, though Kaiki is the catalyst for Nadeko's finally reverting back to a normal human, in the end, the choice is hers and hers alone. And by and large, that choice is not something so easily made by an actual person once they have reached the stages Nadeko does in Medusa. Nisio Isin is instead offering a solution to us, an out. We are first shown where our deluded mentality will likely take us, and only when so presented does he show us the way we can escape, that being specifically, taking on personal responsibility, rejecting fantasy, and accepting the self. And one might be inclined to think that by this token, Nadeko's salvation is rather cheap. She is simply saved and doesn't have to put in the massive amount of effort any of us would have to in order to change. But I offer this. Post her reversion back to human, Nadeko basically doesn't appear in the following seasons of Monogatari. She is said to be either in the hospital or keeping mostly to herself by drawing manga, that representation of the acceptance of the self. While she has chosen to take the path of recovery, she cannot yet rejoin the heroes, and by extension, society. Her turnaround into a new, better person will take time, intense self-reflection, and patience. What she chooses is certainly not easy, as she is removed from the story's relevance while rebuilding herself. We are Nadeko. Certainly the case can be made that, in a broader sense, Nadeko embodies the dangers of escapism as a whole. However, I find that not only is this assessment simple and easily understood from just a cursory glance at her character, but that it would be a disservice to the care and attention put into all of the smaller details Nisio Isin injects to hearken to the specific brand of escapism personified by Otaku. And maybe I haven't convinced you that she's worthy of ranking higher on those tier lists. But to continue to sideline her power as a character borders on falling into the exact same trap she is trying to warn you about. Certainly acknowledging that she represents all of our worst traits is humbling, and a tough pill to swallow. It was for me, and I can't say I've gotten away from some of the habits she exudes simply by doing so. But I can say that her excellent character gave me the chance to look at and change myself, which is a damn good mark of not only a good, worthwhile character, but stellar art. Catch you on the flip side.